Hey everyone, Midlothian Valerie here. From time to time I've referenced some sort of mysterious audit that I have performed on a public document or a set of public documents. I thought I'd take a quick moment to give a quick demonstration of what one of these audits look like, even though each one is custom designed to fit the curiosity. This particular audit was designed to satisfy my curiosity relating to the automated captioning feature available on YouTube, and specifically what was being displayed attached to a moment in time where I was the speaker. As I know I did not say much of what the transcript suggests, I wanted to know just how different the results could be with the same video being on two separate YouTube accounts. After 6 hours, here's where I landed with my results, and there's even some surprise extra bonus audit information towards the end. Okay, here we go. Now, I've got the desktop version, which means that people who are using mobile phones and stuff will not see what I see, but at least we have the video. So this is my YouTube account, and if you take a look, here's the video. Here's the title, 8 views, here's my account and stuff. There is a feature, however, as I mentioned, the transcription feature, and it comes here under these dots. And when you click on it, you have an option between Report, Open Transcript, and Add Translations. When you click Open Transcript, which I already did, it pops open this window over here, where you are now able to go ahead. Whoops. As you can see, I'm not very proficient at this. So, as you can see, over on this side is the transcript side. Now, this is my site. Here, on this tab, is the Village of Midlothian's website. Notice I popped open the transcript as well. Now, what I did was, in order to save some time and stuff, I went ahead and I actually copy-pasted the transcript from this video and the transcript from this video. And what I ended up doing was I put it into a Microsoft Word document. Well, actually, I put it into two separate Microsoft Word documents because Microsoft Word has a less than 10-second feature in which you can go ahead and compare documents. So this is what that looks like. This up here on the top is the version that comes from my website or my YouTube channel. And here is the transcript that comes from the channel that's claiming to be the Village of Midlothian's YouTube channel, which so far the Village is denying that that particular YouTube channel is the official channel. But in the meantime, so what this feature does is it takes both these documents over here and it blends it over here. Now, if you take a look at all this blue, notice how these are places where if you were to compare them, for example, the Village of Millet, whoops, right here. So the Village of Millet, and then you've got the Village of Midlothian at. So what happens is you start getting an idea of what the automatic and automated YouTube transcription service can and cannot pick up. Now, if you start noticing what happens here with some of the trustees' names, for example, it starts getting really bad, actually. So, another thing that I'll do is I'll go ahead, and in this instance, I'm actually going to shrink it, because what I want you to take a look at really quick is what I notice, which is the blue compared to the black. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to scroll for a little bit. Notice these chunks of blue. Those are all discrepancies. Those are all differences at some point, whether it's the timestamp, the verbiage, just something is different with the transcription, even though it is the same exact video. So when I did this and I started noticing some of these chunks, I thought to myself, okay, well, I think I'm going to break some of this down and I'm going to see where all this comes from. So here's another part of a audit. What I did was I went ahead then and I took both transcripts of the raw and I put them together. And first of all, here, if you take a look really quick, whoops, here we go, there. So notice how it says trustee 1, 21, trustee 23, Rusty 5, and trust 6. Rusty and trust, when they're spoken out loud, they're clear. But trusty and trusty, these two, that's one of the imminent failure points of voice recognition algorithms. There are just there's only so much predictability that you can put both to the left and the right of one of these words to be able to discern whether or not, which spelling actually applies to the circumstance. So what I did is I started noticing, for example, Mayor LaRue's name. Of course, that last name's never going to be spelled right. But still, these are some of the variations that came up. Attorney Valdez had the same circumstance as what they did in the Midlothian Messenger, where they didn't include the A over here. Karen Kreis, her name, it's not coming up at all kind of thing, but Christ comes up constantly. So as you can see, there are all these variances in which I call it elasticity, where there's flexibility for mistakes, and these are mistakes. Trustee Karen Kreis's name is not Crisis spelled Crisis. That's just not the way it works. So where did these numbers come from? Because one has to show their math. Well, that's where this starts coming in. So what I did was, and I'm going to click this anchor button here, because this anchor button is how I do a lot of my audits when I'm dealing with bulk. Because when I say I'm dealing with bulk, let me just scroll really quick here so you can see. There is a little over 5,000 lines worth of data, give or take. So I'm messing with a lot of data, and the anchor merely puts it to where I can restore it to its original entry point. Now, what I did was I actually separated the timestamp. I put the content in its own column. Now, which video, the mid is the one from the village of Midlothian, and the one that says Val is mine. Now, with the color coding alone, what happens is this. When you start sorting on different fields, like for example, the timestamp, all of a sudden you start seeing certain gaps and things like that, to where, again, when you start shrinking it, well, in this case, it's probably better to, you can start seeing some of the batches and things like that, where it might have gone off just a little bit, because again, trying to figure out just how far off these transcripts are. But real interesting stuff starts coming when you sort it on content. So what happens with the content is it starts going alphabetical. And if you start noticing how some of these chunks start getting sorted, you start seeing other patterns. It's, again, one of those things that there's no exactness or precision necessarily, but each pattern kind of leads to the next, which then leads me to the next column, and this is where it gets really interesting. So, as I suggested when I had audited the police video that had that incident on October 4th, I had suggested that the video had been messed with, that there was some sort of watermarking that was altered. Now, this is not the same thing, but it's something similar. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sort on the timestamp. Now, what I did was the gray means that whatever the entry is in content, it is not unique in the time slot, and it is not unique in the content. Notice the purple then with the X's. The purple with the X's, however, so in this instant, it did not have a unique time, as you can see, the 107, but it does have unique content. Now this is where you really, when you start shrinking it, and actually let me close that. When you start shrinking it, now all of a sudden you can start seeing more gaps in the transcription. And then it gets more and more curious, the gaps that have absolutely no problems, meaning there's some thickness to that. So there's some measure of consistency. So see how these blocks went just fine, but then all of a sudden you get these other blocks that have, these issues that are going on kind of stuff. So there is one other facet and feature to this that I use also, that not just this, let me go ahead back to the top, but it is also in this section over here. Each one of these words I've given a slot. So notice first, second, third, fourth, all the way through the 12th. So there's a total of 12 words for each line of the transcription service. There's a lot of things that you can do with this when you do start sorting, for example. You know, you start getting to notice buzzwords, keywords. I mean, I could sit here and maybe in like 20 minutes strip out a lot of the common words, you know, like the word a, and, you know, and be able to really narrow in, you know, on what's in each line. But here's the last part. So that green, and I need to actually go back to my anchor, so let me bring it back to this. So here's where my problems start happening, and they should be yours as well, in the sense that every time you put up a video, YouTube does have the feature of potentially automating and auto-generating some captions for you. What I highlighted in green here, and I'm going to keep on scrolling here, there we go, is what I said at the October 25th board meeting in connection with October 4th. Now, this was one of those spots where I wanted to just point out, it had me laughing for a moment, even though it's not funny. But I mentioned something about the idea of Citizens United, and I don't need to get into that. But never did I say anything about the Saudis. Never did I say anything about Falls News Network area legal team has been hard at work trying to distort leverage. Meaning this is the kind of stuff that, again, because of the automated generation factor, it does get fed in somewhere. Whether it is, you know, into the search engines, maybe. But even if it's just some human being who happens to be hard of hearing and they're using these captions because, you know, the poster is just not able to do their own transcriptions, which is why when I did do transcriptions, I did them manually. So this all leads into what led up to October 4th, which has to do with, I made an announcement about an audit that I had done about the crime-free housing program here. And it was argued about on Facebook that I should let everything go and that I'm just supposed to wait until things are investigated. And it was one of those moments where it really struck me as odd because I had already investigated quite a bit into this news story, and it was one of those things I'm going to keep on investigating. So when I said I audited that program, here's what I mean by auditing that program. This type of a sheet, for example, and none of this that I'm showing you right now is the full audit itself. This is like a midterm kind of version that I'm showing. But this is all information that, had it been collected properly, that should have gone to each of these job titles, for example, to the village clerk, to the mayor and the board of trustees, economic development, the building superintendent, you know, the CFH officer, you know, violations, this, that, and the other thing. Not only that, I even had this sheet as well, and if you take a look, this wasn't something that I did lightly. You know, the reds were all redacted information. That first round of FOIA requests, for example, yellow was missing. You know, and all of those are violations that happened and things like that. This was another variation of a smaller summary. You know, this was a new master system that not system, but another master spreadsheet that, if you take a look, I was going ahead and I was, you know, basically getting stuff done. And I had made a quote about how much time it would take for somebody to invest. Well, actually, I had said the FBI, but arguably it could be anyone. I had made a quote about how long it would take to fill in, you know, all of these gaps, these yellows, these unknowns, these missings. That's what the M is, the user unknowns, you know, things like that. And this time matrix is what I had used to go ahead and calculate that. So, you know, let's say it took only 60 seconds. You know, things. Anyway, so point being, that leads into this, which would be another one of those sheets that I did that has evidence to it. And this particular spreadsheet that was drawn from what you already just saw, for example, and you don't need to see the text, what you need to see are the colors, because it goes by year, and what happens is, this is 2013, this blue right here, this purple means, and it's supposed to be an every other year inspection. These properties all were given a pass. You know, look at these chunks of purples that, you know, people were given a pass. And again, this is just a short list. This was not the full audit. You know, I had charts, I had all this other kind of stuff, kind of thing. And it wasn't something that could just be, you know, flopped out necessarily. Whoops. Kind of thing. So with all that said, these are news stories, and they're news stories